clutch performances out on the lacrosse field for the men and women.
The women's hockey team was in the national semifinal.
And the Buffs football team, they got a rare win. Find out who they beat.
Themselves?
Wouldn't be the first time. Buff Sports Live, it's now! Welcome into Buff Sports Live. I'm Jake Shapiro.
And I'm Tessa Diestel. Spring break starts for us as soon as this show is over, but we promise not to mail it in.
That's right, Tessa. The Buff pool doesn't even open until Sunday, so there's not much else to do around here yet.
See you in the deep end, chap.
The Colorado Buffaloes held their annual spring game last Saturday. The event was rebranded to the Spring Showcase as most of Boulder showcased their drinking ability for St. Patrick's Day. Let's pick it up with Steven Montez's day. He did not perform as well as we would have liked to see. Right here, throwing a touchdown to Karsenault. That was about as pretty as you could throw a pass, but a few plays later, he gets picked off by Kyle Trago, who was spotting for Evan Worthington, who was out of the game with an injury. Worthington had a good year last year. Trago played nicely in the Spring Showcase. Then Nate Landman right here. Soon thereafter, the pickoff by Trago gets one for himself, and that would be the day for Montez. Up and down, 8 for 15 with 90 yards through the air and 43 on the ground, throwing 2 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. But let's go back to Karsenault, who picked up 2 touchdowns and looked slick as could be on this catch. Look at that, yeah, yards after catch for you old timers. Second look at this play. You gotta have it. Look at this. Right there, 1, 2, touchdown. Then, Steven Montez, going back to him for a second, he picked up a touchdown on the ground as well on this read option, going to the outside, making a nice cut move, and then going along the sidelines. But he gets an excessive celebration penalty afterwards. Not the best decision from our key decision maker, the quarterback right there, Steven Montez. Here are some key dates for CU football moving forward as we head towards the first game. But right now I'm going to toss it to Vinay Simlot, who's been at Folsom Field waiting to give this report for us for 6 days. Hopefully he's been able to shower.
The sun is out, the grass is green, the birds are chirping, and you know what that means. It's time for spring football. It was a spring football showcase here at the University of Colorado. Of course, Coach Mike McIntyre doesn't like the spring football game because he says you use up one of your padded scrimmages. You get 3 for the entire spring. You use one of them up and you don't really learn much from your team. They don't get any better. Steven Montez had an okay game here today. He threw 2 back-to-back interceptions on some screen passes, which was not good, but he had a lot of rushes that he broke out for a lot of yards and for 1 touchdown. Other notable performances for Colorado was freshman quarterback Tyler Lytle, who looked very comfortable in the pocket, looked comfortable with his receivers. For the running backs, Alex Fontenot, the redshirt freshman, is listed as the first running back on the depth chart, not Bo Bisharat, who got a lot of reps from Phil Lindsay last season. That'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Again, this is the depth chart in the spring game, so it really doesn't mean much. On the defensive end, Coach McIntyre was really impressed with Akil Jones, the sophomore inside linebacker who had a sports hernia at the end of last season. He got surgery for that injury, is fully recovered, and we look forward to seeing him on the field in the fall. I'm Vinay Simlot. I'll see you back on the field in the fall as well. Jake, back to you.
The Buffs still practice this week after the spring showcase before getting time off until August. Here's Jack with his take on the action.
The football team had their final spring practice today here at the Champions Center. Now, after a year in which the wide receiving core underperformed greatly, one of the hot topics of discussion was wide receiver Lavash Karsenault, who serves to be playing a large role in the offense come next season.
He's going to play a big role. He's a very good player. He can do a lot of different things. He's big and physical, and so he'll play a big role in our offense.
Another area of discussion was the defensive line, which ranked dead last in the conference last season. Coach McIntyre said they've been making a lot of progress, and he's seen the new guys in particular standing out.
I've seen they're moving better, they're in better shape, we're more physical.
Yeah, you heard Vinay talking about those quarterbacks earlier, and Coach McIntyre has seen improvement out of all 3 of them. Now, he attributes that to new quarterbacks coach Kurt Roper, who spent time coaching Thad Lewis while he was at Duke, and also coach Eli Manning, who's, of course, went on to have a great career in the NFL with the New York Giants. Now, he thinks Roper has done a great job working with these quarterbacks, and he attributes that to being a cast-off from the David Cutcliffe tree.
Kurt's coached a lot of great quarterbacks and been at different places and good systems. And, he cut his teeth on, and I did too, who I think is the best quarterback coach in America, David Cutcliffe. And so he learned all his stuff from him, and he's very, very good on that.
One of the surprise attendees for Colorado's practice today was former Arizona State head coach Todd Graham. Now, it's interesting to see Graham at the practice after he was released by Arizona State. He has a close relationship with McIntyre, and that'll be something that's interesting to keep an eye on going forward.
I've got to know Todd when I came into the league, and of course he's out right now. So I called him. I said, "Hey, what are you doing?" He said he was driving his wife crazy. So he came down here for a few days to watch and hang out with me. So it's good.
Now, this was the last time that the team will practice until July. They'll be off for the month of May. Players will have an opportunity to go home and visit with their family members before the season really gets into full swing. Outside the Champions Center, I'm Jack Stern, Buff Sports Live.
The Buffs women's club hockey team fell to eventual national champions Liberty 12-1 in the national semifinal. Here we see the game out there in Columbus. The lone goal for CU came right here from Maura Keefe. But what a season it was for the Buffs. They were WWCHL champs and got to the national semifinal, finishing 25-9-1. Also, congrats to Leah MacArthur for finishing the season as the #1 scorer in women's Division I club hockey and being named the second team All-American.
Last Saturday was the annual CU football spring game breakfast, at which the coaches hand out awards to players. For this week's trivia question, we asked you, who won the Eddie Crowder Award last year? This year, the Eddie Crowder Award for Outstanding Leadership went to Rick Gamboa and Josh Kaiser. Stay tuned for the answer. Shap, meet in the deep end?
I don't know about the deep end, Tessa. I'm kind of scared of pools, and I'm scared of how much more Vinay Simlot we have coming up in this show.
Well, Vinay goes over the shocking play of the Pac-12 this year after the break.
We'll be right back on Buff Sports Live.
3, 2, 1, we're clear.
Hey, Rach, have you heard about the Buff Sports Live desk troll?
There's no such thing, Jake.
Oh my God. In 1992, he bit an anchor's foot clean off during the show.
No way.
She mispronounced a name.
We're back on Buff Sports Live. Unbelievable women's basketball game last night.
Wendy D. Kennard was amazeballs.
Well, the show must go on. She had a triple-double in 60 minutes of play as the Buffs went on to win. Welcome back, and welcome into Gourmet Vinay, where Vinay Simlot cooks up the best takes. It's March, and the sports world is all tuned into college basketball, but all the teams in the Pac-12, the Conference of Champions, are already home, regrouping after a tough season on and off the court.
Yeah, Arizona, ASU, and UCLA were the 3 Pac-12 teams that made it to the big dance. None of them did much of anything. None of them made it to the round of 32. Arizona, of course, big expectations coming into the tournament. They had their cheating scandal off the court as well. I'm going to say this, if Arizona's going to cheat, they got to cheat better because it didn't go well for them.
It wasn't just Arizona that struggled, but USC also implicated in that scandal, struggled in the NIT, as did almost every school in the Pac-12 that got into the NIT.
Yeah, those 3 schools that made it to the NIT, Utah's the only one still alive. I guess the prayers are for Utah for the Pac-12 to do anything in the postseason.
Look, this was not a banner year for the Pac-12 by any means, and it just wasn't even on the hardwood. Tad Boyle admitted it himself, but on the football field as well, the Pac-12 really struggled this season.
Yeah, they had the worst conference record in bowl games out of any Power 5 conference. They were 1-8. The sole win coming from Utah. Maybe Utah's the only school that can play men's sports in the Pac-12.
You know, Boyle followed up in that same interview saying, things are never as good as they seem when they're good, and they're never as bad as they seem when they're bad. Meanwhile, the conference seems to be struggling, and there should be a concern about that struggle with TV deals and other priorities in the conference gone wrong, Vinay.
Let me just say this. Nobody has won a title in basketball from the Pac-12 since '97, and nobody has won a title in football since '72. That's before Steve Jones was teaching here at CU.
I don't know how Steve will like that comment, but we'll find out if Steve will like to see Vinay, who we will see later in the show.
The tryout tour for second-team All-Pac-12 selection George King is about to begin. The outgoing senior from the men's basketball team has been selected to play in a pair of prestigious postseason showcases for professional hopefuls. First, King will play in the National Association of Basketball Coaches College All-Star Game on March 30th as part of this year's Final Four festivities. The game is reserved for some of the top senior players in the nation whose teams are no longer playing in the tournament. Next month, King will compete at the Portsmouth Invitational Showcase. This runs April 11th through the 14th, and last year the event proved to be a big stepping stone for former CU star Derek White.
Ola Johansson picked up another honor as his skiing career at CU comes to an end. The ski team member was named Friday as the 2018 RMISA Male Athlete of the Year. This is the second consecutive season a Buffalo has won the Men's Alpine Award. In his 3-year career at Colorado that now comes to a close, he was a 3-time All-American and a 2-time RMISA MVP.
Saturday morning, Mike McIntyre was honored with the Rod Carew Leadership Award, named in honor of the Hall of Fame baseball player. Both McIntyre and Carew have been actively involved in the Be the Match program. For the last 9 years, McIntyre has made the Be the Match registry a foundational piece of his team's community service projects. Be the Match helps bone marrow and stem cell donors with patients who have been stricken with blood cancer and are in need of transplants to save their lives. McIntyre was presented with the honor at the team's annual Spring Game Awards breakfast.
Colorado volleyball coach Jesse Mahoney announced the team's 2018 spring contest. The Buffs, who are in the middle of their spring training block, will have their first competition Saturday, April 14th in Fort Collins against rival Colorado State. CU will then host an alumni scrimmage on Saturday, April 21st at Coors Event Center. Colorado finished the 2017 season with an impressive 24-10 record and advanced to the Sweet 16.
A recent controversy in the MLB is again bringing attention to the equipment our athletes use. Vinay Simla has the update.
And now to a story we promised you we would follow. Last season, my friend Aaron Montgomery told you about juiced baseballs in the majors. If you don't remember, let me give you a summary. During the 2017 season, Major League Baseball broke the single-season home run record that was set in the year 2000, when everyone was using steroids. This prompted many to question whether the baseballs had been altered or juiced. MLB Commissioner Rob Manfred denied that the baseballs had been changed, but promised a full investigation. Now, new research commissioned by ESPN's Sports Science finds that the baseballs used after the 2015 All-Star Game had been changed, making the balls less dense than before. The core of the baseballs now weighs half a gram less than the old cores, making the balls fly an average of 6 inches farther. Rob Arthur is a physicist commissioned by Major League Baseball to investigate the issue, and he found that the new baseballs are less air-resistant than before. That, combined with the half-gram weight difference, allows baseballs to come off the bat faster than ever. To be fair, Major League Baseball has denied that the balls have been altered, and nobody has been able to conclusively prove that there is correlation between the allegedly altered baseballs and the increased home run rate, meaning the increase in home runs could be caused by a variety of factors, including a change to the approach of hitting. We'll promise to keep following this story, but hey, we've got scientific proof now.
Former USA star women's goalkeeper Hope Solo, considered to be among the best women's soccer players of all time, stopped by my class on Tuesday. The two-time U.S. Olympic gold medal winner and World Cup gold medal winner spoke in Professor Roger Pelkey's sports governance class. Solo has been an outspoken critic of the U.S. Soccer Federation, which oversees both the women's and men's national teams. She and some of her teammates 3 years ago began an Equal Play for Equal Pay campaign. She and several students presented on why female athletes deserve equal pay and benefits to the men. Tessa, we're about to talk about one of my favorite summertime activities.
What's that? Hanging out with me?
No, although that's up there. Tennis. I love clay and I love grass, and we're embarking upon that season. The CU women's tennis team was out in Northern California this past weekend, and we'll tell you how they did.
We are the University of Colorado sailing team, and still the only college sailing team in Colorado. Last year, we traveled to 5 regattas and hosted our own using a fleet we bought with community support.
This year, we're raising money to purchase a safety boat that will take care of our sailors and lead effective practices to get them in tip-top shape to kick stern at regattas.
Weather changes happen quickly in Colorado, so we need to be prepared in case anyone ends up in the water. A safety boat with a proper engine will help make sure we can get people and boats to safety in the event of a capsize.
Safety is our team's top priority, and this boat will help us prepare for worst-case scenarios. This boat will put us on track through being the safest, the fastest, and the most effective team in our conference.
Donate today to help us reach our $4,000 goal and get CU Sailing motivated. Share to everyone you know to spread the word. Your help will be on our way to be a safer and more successful program.
Guess who's back? It's Vinay Simlot, and he is back with more tasty takes. It's Gourmet Vinay, and we talked about the men's struggles across the board in the Pac-12 this year, but the women, they have fared much better, particularly on the hardwood.
Yeah, we've got 4 teams still alive in the NCAA tournament from the Pac-12. That's Stanford, UCLA, Oregon, and Oregon State. 4 out of the Sweet 16, that's 25%. Pretty good, huh?
No doubt. What are your takeaways thus far from that NCAA tournament from the women?
Sabrina Ionescu is probably one of the best players in the entire country. Oregon's ranked number 2, they're seeded number 2, ranked 6th in the nation. Kelly Graves, he's a great coach as well.
That bodes well for the Colorado Buffaloes, whose women's program is on the rebound, as we've talked about. But hey, even better is how the Pac-12 has fared in other sports. 6 volleyball teams, half the conference, finished the season ranked. And they're having a very successful inaugural women's lacrosse season as well, Vinay.
Yep. CU's going to get to host that Pac-12 tournament here at Kitt Field. But let's talk about volleyball, because a lot of the CU players have talked about wanting to play in the Pac-12 because it's the best conference for volleyball in the country, and they say that's the reason that they choose to play in the Pac-12.
It's such a delight compared to the men's schools and men's programs to have women's programs that are actually representing the Conference of Champions as those champions. Well, I think we've had enough of Vinay for today. It's been a lot of Vinay. You'll see him again after spring break. Hey, Tessa, have you seen enough Vinay yet?
Apparently, us here at BSL can never get enough of Vinay. The women's lacrosse team was down a goal with seconds left in regulation. The Buffaloes converted on a USC turnover, evening the game at 7-7. But less than a minute into overtime, the ranked Trojans scored first to defeat CU 8-7. The loss was the first for CU in Pac-12 play. 2 days later, things got better for the women. Miranda Stinson led the Buffs with 6 points, 4 goals, and 2 assists, while Carly Cox and Sadie Grozier each recorded a hat trick with 3 goals. CU downed the Sun Devils 18-2. The Buffs are now 6-3 overall and 3-1 in the Pac-12 after this weekend.
After their split on the road, the Buffs moved up in some rankings and down in others. Either way, all 3 major polls tabbed the lacrosse team as the number 15 team in the nation. This week's esteemed athletes of the week are Yannick Paul from the men's golf team and Julia Lysella from the women's lacrosse team. Senior Yannick Paul led the way for CU at last week's Lampkin San Diego Invitational as the Buffaloes finished 8th among the loaded 16-team field. He finished the tournament, I didn't golf in it, with a 3-over 54-hole score of 219, which earned him 32nd place individually.
And redshirt sophomore goalie Julia Lysella continues to impress, now taking over as the starting goalie. She posted a career-high 17 saves, good for 4th on CU's single-game list in an overtime loss to number 12 USC on Friday. Then, in Sunday's game against Arizona State, Lysella did not allow a goal in the first half, which marked the first time. She allowed just 2 goals and finished the game with 9 saves.
I'm excited to see her as the starting goalie for the lacrosse team. Meanwhile, in the men's lacrosse, they played a game on Friday, which was their home opener. We picked this one after Colorado got down 2-0. This was on Buff Sports Live, by the way. All the games are on Buff Sports Live. They went on a 4-goal run, giving them a 2-goal lead. Look at this. Buffs just get as hot as can be, scoring from everywhere on the field. And this is their 4th goal, but that 2-goal margin was as big as it would get for a while, and Arizona State came back and tied the game at 12-12 going into the end of regulation, but in overtime. Colorado just a few minutes in. Right there on the left side to the right side, Ben Wharton, game winner. 13-12, Colorado wins their home opener against Arizona State as the Sun Devils drop this one and the Buffaloes top then. You'll be seeing more of Ben Wharton in the show.
California held off a strong effort from Colorado in women's tennis on Friday, topping the Buffs 4-2 in Berkeley. Kira Wojcik and Chloe Huell picked up the Buffs wins that CU dropped to 8-5 overall and 1-2 in the Pac-12.
Due to persistent rains throughout the day in the Bay Area, Colorado's tennis match against number 25 Stanford was canceled and will not be made up. Those two teams were scheduled to play on Saturday. The Buffs are back in action right now against Washington. Tessa, you've heard about the big dance, right?
Yeah, of course.
Then how come you didn't take me?
Well, we can talk about this later, but that's not the dance that Lena Takahashi is talking about in this week's Man on the Street.
Hey Buff fans, I'm Lena Takahashi and I'm here asking students how their March Madness bracket is going and if CU was playing in the March Madness, where they would put them on their bracket. Let's go find out. Have you filled out a bracket for March Madness?
I have.
And how is that going?
All I can give is a heavy sigh. That sums it up pretty well.
I've made, I think, 3 brackets total. Yeah.
How's it been going so far?
It was going really well the first couple of days. I was winning a lot, and then once a couple of teams where there were upsets, I moved down in my placements a lot, but that's okay. I'll come back, bounce back.
How's it been going so far?
Not great, you know. I think Kentucky's going to win it all still, but overall my bracket's not doing great.
I did fill out a bracket, but it got busted.
So it's not going so hot?
No, not at all.
And if CU was part of March Madness, how do you think we would do?
Oh, we'd do great. Easy Final Four.
I honestly don't think we would make it out of the first round. We really need some tall, muscular dudes that we just don't have yet. The guys we have, they're going to get there someday, I know that, but they're just a little young right now. But give us some time, and I think we could do pretty well.
You know, for March Madness or like a bracket situation when like you might have money on the line, like I might not risk it and put them in my bracket, but we'll see. I hope.
I mean, like loyalty, so I'd put them like kind of high up, but not like, you know, they wouldn't be my winning bracket.
You know, as much of a CU fan I am, I don't know how well we would do. Maybe if we, in a couple of years, get some better players, but yeah, I think after a little while, it just takes time.
So you wouldn't put them pretty high up on your bracket?
I think in one of them I definitely would, just as a CU student, but on all the other ones, probably not.
So it turns out that a lot of people aren't actually following March Madness, but for the people who actually fill out a bracket, it's not going so hot. But they said that they would put CU as the winning team maybe in a couple years, so let's look out for that. For Buff Sports Live, I'm Lena Takahashi. Back to you at the desk.
I don't know why we call that man on the street. That was women on the street there. And you want to talk about Lena Takahashi, she on the street. Next, we're going to see Jack Stern, Lena into rapid fire.
Wow. Can never get enough of those Jake Shapiro puns, can you?
Well, Jack in the Box or not, I'm finally out of the box, and rapid fire is coming up next.
It's the greatest mascot in college athletics. I'm voice of the Buffs, Mark Johnson, and you're watching Buff Sports Live.
This isn't where you want to be. Don't use a fake ID.
While most of the students here at CU have already checked out for spring break, the athletes are still grinding. Here's what's on tap for this weekend. After finishing 8th in the San Diego Classic last week, the men's golf team is out in Palm Desert, California. There, they'll compete in the Bighorn Invitational Tournament today and tomorrow. Later next week, they'll travel up the coast to Palo Alto to take part in the Stanford Goodwin Tournament. The women's golf team is in Tempe, Arizona, competing in the ASU Ping Invitational Tournament all weekend long. Both the men's and the women's track and field teams will join the golf team in Tempe. They'll be participating in the unique Pac-12 Big Ten Challenge. This is the first time either team from Colorado has been invited since the challenge was started 4 years ago. The women's lacrosse team will look to continue their hot streak tonight in Eugene when they square off against the Oregon Ducks at 6 p.m. After an overtime victory against Arizona State last Friday, the club lacrosse team will take on the Grand Canyon Lopes at 1 p.m. on Saturday. Be sure to log on to BuffSports.live to catch all the action. I'm Jack Stern with this week's edition of Rapid Fire. Back to you at the desk.
We finally have the answer to that trivia question I read about 10 minutes ago. You'd have to have either the memory of an elephant or the resources of Norland Library to get this one. We asked, who won the Eddie Crowder Award for Outstanding Leadership last year? Well, the answer is Rick Gamboa and Philip Lindsay. As two of the most loved Buffs at CU, it's not exactly a huge surprise to see these guys as leaders in the locker room. Congrats to those that managed to guess this one.
You're like the only person I know that goes to Norland anymore. Anyways, this week's Tweet of the Week comes to you from our own Nathan Tung. Normally behind a camera on our show, he made good use of those skills, taking this perfect picture of the Flatirons earlier this week. The city of Boulder tweeted this out, enchanting photo, he wanted to call it, and that's what the city of Boulder called it as well. Enchanting, Nathan. Congrats on the big-time tweet and the perfect picture. And then you saw it earlier, but it doesn't make it any less great. Ben Wharton's overtime game winner for CU to top ASU 13-12 in overtime is in the club's opener was the play of the week. We have to give it to him. Unbelievable dramatics there for the Colorado Buffaloes by Ben Wharton. It was his 19th goal and 23rd point of the year.
Thanks for watching this week's show. It's over, meaning it's spring break.
Yes! But sports never sleep. But finally, we can. We'll see you in 2 weeks.